Eso. ¿Eh? Por acá. Hola, Milagros. A ver, mira. Muy bien, ahí veo, ahí está entrando Alena. Hello.
You're good. Let me get my different background. How are you?
Hi, we just opened back up. We have basically two 90-minute chunks, one from 12 to 1:30, one from 2 to 3:30, or maybe a little bit more today. We're gonna do the closing call, and so we'll see. So people are coming back in after taking a break. How are
Nice.
you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
No, I am not. This is, for all the artificial intelligence that's around. Yesterday we did a bilingual session, and oh my goodness, it is a mess to edit.
Yeah. For the
So
subtitles or for the transcript?
for the transcript and the subtitles,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
It's like no, it's incredible. Like yes, the brain's capacity to switch between two, three languages, and AI needs specific instructions.
I'm testing out different automatic subtitling tools right now, and they're all falling short for one reason or another. But I think I'm going to just keep going down the list because, yeah, one of them I tried Auris, and it just makes subtitles that are like 300 characters long or something like that, which clearly is not
It's
good.
hard to read.
Yeah, yeah. Then there's another one I just tried, Capwing, but what it does is it doesn't time the subtitles right. So it every single next subtitle ends at the very end of the previous one. So it even covers like spaces where people aren't talking. So
Uh,
next I'm gonna try Maestra because somebody
okay.
just recommended
I'm
Maestra to me.
I will. I'll be interested to hear your takeaways.
Yeah,
It's it's been an interesting um, learning process with these because things were moving quickly, and so what to do. And it was interesting to hear, the talk with Andy about labels, for example, because we curated a lot more the subtitles than the transcripts, because we received things
yeah,
like
that's a lot of content to
and
subtitle.
so we have a disclaimer, and it's like, no, yes, we are using artificial intelligence. We are editing some things. And I do have my list of priorities, which ties into the specifications, right? I was like, okay, what are
Yeah,
my priorities? My priorities is that some of the concepts are spelled right, names of speakers and people are spelled right. And then other things, if we have time, we'll do them. So, for example, today, and I wanted to run, I should go to the community and ask if people caught the one crazy typo in Scott's presentation. And, it's like, why would it do that? Like, it should know from all its knowledge that this thing, centaur,
yeah.
is spelled this way. Um,
It does do some funny stuff sometimes. I actually, for the very first time, had one of the systems tell me that because I ask it to review content quite a lot. And for the very first time, I had it tell me, we don't need to make any changes to this. It's good as it is. And I was like, what? It just is, it always is looking to make changes and make suggestions if you ask it to do that. And so for it to say, no, there's nothing we would do here, it was just like, all right, that's a first.
yeah, that is interesting. Or hopefully people will continue to trickle in. I want to be mindful of your time and the time, and we're recording these for people who can attend. I know we have very many different time zones. We did our
Yeah,
best scheduling things at a time when it's kind of okay in different places, but it is very late in Europe. It is a crazy time in the middle of Asia. So we're getting a lot of requests for the recordings, which we are going to be curating for VIP people, but it's going to take us a little bit of time. Um,
yeah.
so, welcome, Elena Brandt, to AI in Writing. Thank you for being here. Elena is a friend and colleague from the localization industry and an incredible mind when it comes to thinking about standards, requirements, quality assurance. So I am very honored to have you here and to have you have contributed your presentation. I think it's a fantastic use case of AI to support specifications. So without further ado, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, thank you so much, Romina, and congratulations on this conference. Thank you so much for the invitation to join. It's an honor to be among the participants here, and it's so impressive to see all of the systems that we're working in here, the level of organization to make sure that content is getting out to people in various time zones. Just a very high level of empathy in the design of this entire conference. And of course, Romina, you're such an expert in the field of plain language as well, and in translation and localization. Um, so just thank you so much for all of the work that went into this. My name is Elena Brandt. I am I'm still a professor. I'm a former professor from the Middlebury Institute. I relocated to Mexico City. So I taught about localization for about 6.5 years. Before that, I worked in localization. And I have since relocated to Mexico City. I'm actually really proud to announce that I'm going to be teaching about translation and localization in Spanish at the Universidad Intercontinental. So it will be my first formal foray into teaching in Spanish about translation and localization the next semester. Yeah, that's kind of what I do. I have a training program as well, Loc Essentials, that I've been working on for about the last year and a half that offers training programs and on translation and localization. And I'm highly, highly interested in process automation. I think when we think about process automation, something that we hear about a lot with translators is, there's this fear and a very emotional rejection of systems like machine translation, generative AI, and things of that nature. Because of the false claims that are made around those systems, right? That they can automate the people away, which is just ridiculous. You're not going to automate people out of translation and localization when these systems are highly imperfect. In the same regard, I remember maybe 4 or 5 years ago and maybe you remember this as well, Romina, when like systems like Plunet were being launched, they started talking about being able to automate project managers away. And I thought that was a hilarious claim as well, because what they were saying is you can automate project managers away. The purchase orders are going to be sent automatically. And I thought at the time, if you think that as a project manager, my only job is to send a purchase order, you clearly do not have an understanding of what project management is. Yes, please send the purchase order automatically so I can concentrate my time and efforts on.
Elena, we got you muted. I'm sorry about that.
That's okay.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah.
So we just lost a couple of seconds about yes, automate the tedious
Yeah.
tasks like the purchase,
Yes.
but what other things are happening that that don't need that need human input, right?
Yes, exactly. And so that's where my interest in the specification wizard comes in, because I think it's going to be something that I will build a little by little, starting with the materials that I presented as a part of this presentation. But what I'd like to do with that is to continue to integrate the information that's generated through a wizard of that kind into making automatic workflow decisions, and then allowing project managers to shift maybe more into like a process management, production management, solutions architect type roles where more strategy is being, or strategy becomes more the focus of the work rather than the manual sending files and things like that.
I think that's a very again another use case that we've seen throughout the summit that is super useful, super insightful. For those of you who haven't seen Elena's presentation, there are a ton of resources shared, and we also have access to her GPT version of the specifications wizard, which is a light version of what's used. If I remember correctly, your full version is in Claude,
Yep.
a Claude project, and the custom GPT can get us started. And I've already tried it, so it's really cool. I think it's really cool to see that in action, and I want to also you know state this explicitly, that even though we're talking as in some of the examples about translation and localization, this also applies. I am now working mostly in monolingual communication, whether it's in English or in Spanish, and it does also apply. Quality is not an absolute, and it absolutely depends on the goals. And to me, I always talk about the triad of understanding. There's the text. For me, primarily using written text, there's the text, the task, and the reader. And we need to marry all those and understand how all those come into play. And Elena has done a fantastic job at helping us plug that in and create those expectations and make them explicit through the wizard. So,
Yeah.
can you tell us what you're sharing in the chat?
This is a link to the GPT version of the specification wizard. And sometimes I'm curious about your experiences, Romina, because sometimes it works perfectly. Sometimes it will spit out a report, and other times it seems like it doesn't quite. You have to do a little bit more prompting to get it to spit out the report. But I think that's sort of the nature of things when working with these generative AI systems too, that they don't always do what we would expect them to do.
We were talking actually earlier with Scott Mayer about the fact that, yes, they're very good at picking up patterns and spitting out patterns, but sometimes those patterns are not the ones that you expected, even though the prompt does talk about it, by the prompt, I'm not only talking about the specific question or statement that you plug in as the last place of interaction, but also your general instructions, your documents that you're uploading, right?
Yeah.
And so how, I know you have a lot of experience with managing projects, understanding specifications. So I would like for you to maybe give us a little bit of an overview of how specifications help us as the experts, whether it's writing or translating or localizing or interpreting even, be better and give the client a better product.
I always think about, I really liked what you talked about with the text, task, and the reader. I always stress the audience and the purpose of the text. Those are two things. Whenever I'm teaching about translation or localization, it's the very first question that I ask. What is the purpose of the text, and who is the audience of the text? Because with those two things in mind, that's how you're going to define the strategy that you're going to use for the text. And it's going to influence so many of the outputs of translation and localization processes, or writing processes as well, right? If we think about monolingual writing processes, it will influence things like terminology. So if we're talking to a subject matter expert, or if we're talking to a general purpose user, we're going to use very different terminology. We're going to use a very different style. If we think about aspects like demographics, where an example I use a lot is that baby boomers in the United States, millennials, and Gen Z in the United States use very different language. And so if we're specifically targeting one of those groups, if I'm targeting a Gen Z group, and in fact, I read something the other day that sort of made me chuckle, because it's apparently using emojis is very millennial and it's not very Gen Z. So when Gen Z sees emojis, they're like, oh, those cute millennials. And so that's one small characteristic of writing that you would want to adjust depending on the audience that you're trying to attract with the text. So having specifications informs things like what's going into the term base, what's going into the style guide, what sort of workflows are we going to establish? If it's I use the example of eBay a lot, where eBay, there's so much user generated content that you're not going to have a human reviewer go through and review all of it. So it's high volume, kind of low value in terms of quality, because it's just individual users uploading stuff, writing their description, and wanting to sell something. And so a workflow for content like that would be very different than a workflow that you would establish for something that is much more high value. So specifications help to determine and just, yeah, put all that on paper. I think the implicit, if I can say one more thing about just the importance of how specifications influence work. When you start writing for multicultural audiences, which is the case, if you're writing for people in the United States, you're writing for a highly multicultural audience. If you're writing for, this is just the nature of the world now. People move everywhere. Societies are highly multicultural. And so there's also, if I'm an in-culture expert, if I'm somebody who is in a culture, and I might have expectations about what something should look like that seem obvious to me, that may not be obvious to somebody who is an outsider to that culture. And so we also want to do things like make implicit expectations explicit through specifications, so we don't have any surprises at that.
That's a very good use of bringing to the surface some of the things, and it ties into some of the things we were talking earlier with Arl about how much we are putting in, and it also brings into question whether, when we're customizing and personalizing, are we how much is enough and what's going overboard? But it can also help us be very targeted and maybe very Gen Z oriented, or maybe very millennial oriented. And at the same time, we can also add specifications to bring everything into a neutral. For example, in plain language, a lot of times we want, and I'm working in a project right now where we want the English to be pretty neutral because it's going to be translated, but I don't want the English that's going to English speakers to be that neutral, to be boring in a way.
Yeah.
So we're going to have the specifications for the translations and what we're talking about. If we were to use typical things that happen in English speaking contexts, football analogies that other cultures don't understand. But we kind of want to bring the football analogies back because they make it fun.
Yeah.
So it helps us see and zoom in and out and connect. And I think that's one of the things that I like about having the ability to kind of turn knobs in your wizard and be able to come up with specifications that have something in common, and then have something that's unique to a specific target audience.
Yeah, I was amazed by some of
Making
the
implicit expectation explicit. Thanks for the catchy phrasing. I can stress that enough when working with a healthcare professional and a coach.
Virginie, I think at least I couldn't hear that well enough. Would you mind repeating that?
I'm sorry, I didn't realize my microphone just opened by itself. Maybe they are not blocked.
Oh, no, yeah, it was, but you came on, and so I thought you were commenting on what we were saying.
a really good point too. So if you did want to repeat it,
I just like the catchy phrasing. This is what I was jotting down for myself. The making implicit expectations explicit. That's another way of saying what I need to recall when I work with healthcare professional.
Yeah, that's thinking about that domain as well, where you do want to use highly personalized language. That's such an interesting domain, because when you're doing the interpretation, like if you're in an interpreting environment, you are localizing for the individual person that's right in front of you. That's a super interesting use case.
And to me, one of the use cases and projects that I'm going to be working on in the next few months is actually taking kind of at the opposite end of that eBay example of saying we have a lot of content, we want to personalize instructions to patients. And that, is not like getting the gist of, what color is this water bottle that I'm buying on eBay. But, and one of the problems that I had with one of the, trying some of the um, um, captioning for some of the videos, for example, it turned dialysis into analysis as a word, and that can create all kinds of issues for the patient, and that's where you want the human at the core or human in the loop to make sure that that quality assurance is there. So going from a high volume scenario to a personalized, maybe there's also volume because there's a lot of patients, but that's where you want to fragment the quality assurance and make sure that each one of those is properly supervised. I want to go back to Virginie because she has her hand up. Tell us.
Also, it resonated with my situation when you spoke about multicultural audiences. This is something particularly difficult being in, I don't know how do you call, like, I would say a big city, for lack of a better word in English. It's Montreal in Canada. And you thought quickly about healthcare professional on one-on-one situation, but there are other healthcare professional and they work in public health, and this is where it's coming really difficult because you have this vast level of literacy plus cultural differences, and you have to make one document for all those people.
I can tell you that I relate to that in many levels because I work in patient education as well. So hitting that balance, it's like, okay, this is going to go, and I've done like reviews for the CDC. The CDC writes for everybody, and we have audiences in the US and audiences abroad that are reading CDC materials. It happens to us when we go into translation into Spanish, translate into neutral Spanish. Oh, what? Spanish has so many flavors. So this is a problem that happens in many different areas of the language industry. Elena, you want to talk about that a little bit?
I just saw a really interesting example. I wish I could remember the source of it, where what the writers did for content that was meant to address a wide variety of Spanish speakers in like New York City or something like that, where you've got many different countries of origin, is they actually included, like they did some extra rewriting. So it wasn't source to target in the traditional sense, it was source plus additional rewriting that was, hey, in this country it's called this, in this country it's called that. So kind of making it an educational exercise that was inclusive of all of the people and the identities of the people that Spanish speakers that might be reading the content, where they could see, oh, this word is what's used in this culture, this word is what's used in this culture. And I thought that was a really interesting approach. I don't know how much that can be done in a medical setting, but I think in medicine, people want, the goal is empathy. So maybe it is a solution that could be implemented.
I think yes, there's a lot of I remember hearing at the American Medical Writers Conference this idea that it's very hard to strike a balance between when you write and it's informational and you need to add a little bit of education, but you don't want to go overboard because you're going to overwhelm also the reader. Heba, you have a comment, question?
Yeah, I have a comment because I'm a medical writer and it's very challenging. Like, which audience should we target? What is the readability level? Um, like, I'm gonna say some suggestions, they may help, and we have to be creative all the time. So, for example, like when I have ECG, I have to write that it has two spelling, ECG and EKG, like how it's and which is a machine for the heart. So I have to emphasize it's pronounced or written as such in US and pronounce it as such in Europe, for example. Another way is like I don't remember the website, but I think it's Dynamat. It has two levels or two versions of the same document for patients. I don't remember if it's Dynamat or Up to Date. It's one of the websites which provide like material for the patient. And it has two levels or two versions. One version for like entry level or like non-native speaker, and the other for speak like a native speakers. This is another idea I was thinking to implement, to have two versions.
I think that that connects to what Elena was talking about, and having that, acknowledging that there are different ways of at the vocabulary level of naming things, but sometimes at the maybe even syntactic level. I My caveat for some of the variations is I like having some baseline that we all share, because I fear that if we share only the highly localized versions, that we're going to be fragmented. And I like being able to have a common reference, a common place to go back to, and so that it is a very challenging exercise. And I'm going to go also to Virginie because I think she may have another question. Is that right?
Of course, there's no right answer to this issue. I can share an experience. We work with an alpha francisation, like a class for adults with low literacy level, and we call them experts of, let's say, of experts of plain language, let's say, and we bring some excerpt of text. And the way to go with them is we read it. It's the person who do the animation. She teaches them, and she will ask, okay, sentence by sentence, what did you understand? How can we make it clearer and usually more simple? And if there's one person that do not understand, they keep working on the sentence. So this is where I'm coming from. And the way they see things, they don't think that two levels of document is necessarily the best avenue. And I kind of agree with that, generally speaking. Maybe just for budget reason, it can be interesting to have only one version. And I must think that if the lower literacy level person can understand, well, the higher levels one will like it as long as it's complete.
I will talk to you about that, but let's hear from Elena.
I liked what Hiba was just saying about the level of creativity that needs to be incorporated into these processes as well. I think that's super interesting that, we think of a field like medicine as being technical, and in technical fields, we imagine that the work would be much more mathematical, maybe just because it's technical. And so I appreciate and just wanted to highlight the fact that it doesn't matter how technical the field is. This is highly creative work. Language work is highly creative work. I think the discussion of Virginie also calls to mind this fact that focus groups are a great thing to incorporate into workflows when we're trying to write content that needs to appeal to a specific audience, right? Whether that audience is broad, whether that audience is more specific, calling in a group of people, having them read through the content with us, and having them give us insights on what was understandable and what was not understandable helps to improve the content that we're producing in the end. And I think it requires that we all, and we are all communicating about the fact that translation and localization and content generation, this isn't just press a button and the content spits out and it's done. These are, what we're producing is something that is highly specialized. It takes work. It takes people investing in the work, taking the time to do the work in a way that's empathetic and that keeps in mind the purpose, the audience of the text. And so I think that's what, AI can help us speed us along to a certain extent, but the people are the ones that need to be, in the end, reviewing things and making a decision about what is being published and put out there.
Yeah, and I think that's where the speeding up in a way that process of creating those different specifications and thinking about the different groups that you're targeting, projects like your wizard help us along and support. And even if we can try specifications in a way faster and more dynamically so that we get to a result and then we evaluate that and we say, okay, no, this is, for this other group, we are going to need to change. And that makes it so much easier to actually have those versions. I love the idea of versions for reaching different audiences from that singular maybe source place, and having that expert, maybe the doctor, maybe the specialist behind it all, but reaching people where their needs are and where their interests are. We're coming up to time. Virginie, you have one last question, comment?
Yes, one last thank you. When I look at your wizard or general use of AI for English speaker, right off the bat, it was easy to take ChatGPT and ask, oh, take this complicated text and make it readable for a 5th grader, 8th grader, and ChatGPT would give us quite satisfying result even at the beginning. The thing is, I don't know if you have the same experience in other languages, because I know we have, for instance, Spanish speaker. In French, we do not have this common core of books that are associated with specific grade level, and those books and grade level system, it's all in ChatGPT. When I try to model custom my own ChatGPT, I have difficulty to recreate that without the common core books as a reference for ChatGPT.
Yeah, and that's where I think one of the things that you can add and share with the specifications wizard in this case is maybe some of those examples. Texts, if you're, let's say, educating or writing for young patients about diabetes in French, and there isn't a common core terminology and guidelines and expectations and even labeling of grade levels for materials, you can label your own examples and add that into the mix. And I want to acknowledge Jeff's question or comment in the chat about other use cases. And I think this is a very important question. Elena has shared some examples, but these are certainly not the only use cases. We can use specifications for everything we do as content creators, translators, right?
Yeah, exactly. The three examples that you see on screen are just example prompts in case you just wanted to press an example prompt and see what the system does. And so I would just encourage you to test it with other kinds of content. And I would be super curious too, if anyone wants to give feedback on how the system is working. I would love to hear any feedback you would be willing to share as well.
Yes, I think we're gonna encourage that. I mean, maybe make a little challenge in the community to say, and also get back to you with that. I think that would be super fun.
Yeah.
Because I think specifications are this is where we humans have a lot of control, and also can help us. It can enhance empathy for getting outputs that we wouldn't have been able to get because it would have taken so much time to do all these different things. So thank you, Elena, for sharing with us and actually for sharing your wizard for us to access. I think that is fantastic. And I am tremendously grateful.
Oh, thank you. I'm so grateful as well for the opportunity to participate. And thank you everyone for being here. And yeah, I've loved the opportunity to connect.
Yes, we'll keep connected in the community, and we are now welcoming Kunal Dalal into the Q&As live. Hi, joining us from Southern California. Kunal is an AI all-around user. He is he uses it at work. He uses it at home. He uses it in education. He has they have started some incredible. Oh, and Wes is here with us too. I love that. And why don't I let you guys tell us a little bit about yourselves, and then we'll go into some questions and Q&A for the session.
All right, Wes, since you came in late, I think late goes first, please.
Wow.
Tell us who you are, what you do.
Wow. Honored to be here. Tell you a little bit about myself. 28 years in education, last 15 in ed tech management in district offices. And the last year, 1 year coming up on the anniversary, November 28th, my title has been AI administrator for a county office of ed, which is supporting 28 school districts. Kunal and I support other districts and clients outside of the Orange County through our company Generative Education. And we currently have a writing project, and we are writing about our experience, how AI has changed our working relationship. And the book is called The Power of Two. So excited about that. And Kunal, back to you.
Cool, thank you. So there you go. We are two heads of the same animal. And so my experience, I am a former biology teacher and physics teacher in high school, mostly almost exclusively in alternative ed. And then I was a high school principal and assistant principal before I moved into the tech industry and was sort of my like the education person in Silicon Valley startups from the Bay Area. So naturally, everything gravitates towards the tech industry, or at least used to. Now it's gravitating toward empty malls. But I also started about a year ago as the administrator of artificial intelligence. It was Orange County, California was the only place in the country that had a job that was focused on artificial intelligence in public education. And my first moment when I used ChatGPT a couple of years ago and tried to figure out how to explain solidarity to my little 2-year-old son at the time, that's when it really hit me hard immediately that education was not going to be the same after this. And so while I was in tech companies for all that time, I had to come back to my first love, which is public education. And here I am. Wes, by the way, one of his superpowers is knowing everybody's name in a room. It's a little bit easy here because you have everything labeled, but he says hi to everyone. And so don't feel like it's weird. It's just Wes being Wes.
It's weird. It's weird. People are not used to being called out and greeted individually in a group.
That is fantastic, and I appreciate that because I'm looking at different things, and so I appreciate that, and I think it brings everybody in. And I am incredibly grateful that you guys are here. The work that you do both within the educational context for the classroom and outside of the classroom, because I have met you both with helping professionals in the case of the Orange County Translators and Interpreters Conference. Interpreters use AI for professional education and for improving the way that they provide services. So the use cases that you have are fit incredibly well into the idea that AI supports what humans do. And so we should embrace it as a tool and as a resource to do more, but not more in a just a quantity sense, but do more and reach farther, deeper, and help people in different places, in special education, in relationships. I love that we have talked about using intergenerational relations, and that's part of what the Kunal's presentation was about, working with parents and kids. So what's would you tell us a little bit about how from in this new role, which is incredible, right? That you are administrators of AI in a school district, in a public school district. What you started doing a year ago and what's happening today?
Oh yeah, that's a big question. I'm gonna throw in Romina had asked for the slide deck that we used at the interpreters conference. So I put that in the chat. So if anybody is interested, grab a hold of that. And yeah, just have it. Just have it. I think resources are useful. All resources are useful. So to answer your question, I think you know, I'll say that the first thing that comes to mind is that when it comes to classroom instruction and schools in general, I'm afraid not much has changed. And that is, we do trainings now, and we got a lot more interest at the beginning of this school year than we had prior. I think this school year, folks are making that turn, realizing that it's not going away, because I think some people were just waiting it out, just being like, this is just hype, it'll go away. And so I think that I think folks have realized that that's not what's going to happen, and so there's this interest in it in that sense. I do feel like the scale of what AI is capable of doing and is able to do already. And we're talking about, like we always say, this is the dumbest AI that was ever going to exist. And even now, the scale of what is available publicly, we don't even know what's going on behind closed doors, right? But what's available publicly is so immense that I think it is, Wes and I often say when we do sessions, if at least one person or a couple of people leave the session saying, having deep existential questions about everything that they chose to do in their entire life, then we're like, okay, we've done our job. And it's not about scaring you, but it is about really, really trying to articulate how fundamental a shift, not just in technology, because I don't actually think this is that much of a fundamental shift in technology, because this technology has existed for a half century at this point. It's a shift in the way in which we view our work, because now with the public access to generative AI and increasingly more and more sophisticated frontier models that are available to us, um, what work looks like, what play looks like, what even thinking looks like is so different that I think that in sort of the folks who have allowed themselves to appreciate this moment, I think that is what we've seen shifting in some teachers' minds and some principals' minds, is sort of this like step back and realizing that, wait, I can't just think about solutions and processes and procedures. I have to really think about the entire big question of, what is the point of my school? What is the point of what I do? And I think that's really what I've been seeing. And I know Wes is in rooms all the time where these questions are popping up a lot.
Yeah. So,
Sorry,
yeah,
go
Wes,
ahead.
back to you.
Oh, so I'm just curious. I feel like I might have missed something. Could everybody just like drop in the chat something you're interested in learning, and then that'll just kind of give me something to pull from. However, there's two things I think that are helpful for us talking about AI is to think about it like an entrepreneur. So that means that an entrepreneur will try something and send it to the market and see if anybody bites or if there's any interest. You don't spend a year developing a product. You spend a day, the least amount of time, trying to develop something to see if it works. And so with AI, that's kind of a good rule, is don't think like, oh, I'm going to take a month, or excuse me, I'm going to take a course to learn AI. And there are courses out there that you could take, and you should, but try to experiment daily. Ethan Mollick is a professor at Wharton, and one of his quotes in his book Co-Intelligence that I find very useful is, invite AI to everything. We really don't know what it's capable of, and so involving it in almost the minutia of our lives can help, and it can be that entrepreneurial moment. So I'll just share something that Kunal and I do. We're lucky to work together, and we go on learning walks. We have the same office space. Our desks are 3 feet apart, and so we take walks together outside, which is good for your health. Like, this is the part about being human and really maximizing what we're built to do. We're built to have sunlight and air. Well, the air is not as good quality indoors. There is no sunlight indoors. So we'll take learning walks. We simply turn on our iPhone voice memo recorder and we record the entire conversation. Now, what I've learned is, usually when you're in a meeting, there's an agenda, there is a list of things you're supposed to talk about, there's an order you're supposed to follow. And what I've noticed is, since we've been recording our learning walks, we are less hard pressed upon ourselves to say, stick to the point. You have to stay to the agenda. Wait, we'll talk about that later. We'll just intermix things from our personal lives, catch up on our weekend in the midst of talking about this business. And when you use AI to transcribe it and then just say, hey, put these notes together so they make sense, separate the personal from the business, it's all done for you. And so we don't have to have this almost adversarial relationship about proper time keeping and rule following. Kunal and I have a much more natural, organic flow, and we're trying to figure out the connections to indigenous cultures, oral storytelling, some of the things that we've found have come afresh in our relationship that are very atypical in a business environment, but seem very healthy, organic, and enjoyable in our work. And AI is allowing us these moments. So that's just brain dump. As one is kind of treat it like an entrepreneur, try one new thing a day, invite it to everything, and keep experimenting, learning, and growing. And don't think like, I have to take a course, I have to, set aside a month just do one thing a day. I'm going to take a look at the chat though. It seems like there's been some interesting things here.
Yeah, people are sharing, and that's great. So let's I'll let you read, and I'll share
Yeah.
a question. So I wanted to hear about what go back to something Kunal said at the very beginning, which is the classrooms have not changed that much. So in seeing what you guys have done and how you can support and enhance professionals working around education and teachers working in the classroom, what is something you would like to see and you would like to spread the word about?
I think that I have an immediate kind of feeling, which one of our ed tech directors, he's in Laguna Beach, he says teachers are suffering from PTSD, and he doesn't mean the standard PTSD, it's post-traumatic standards disorder. And it's an idea that teachers have been traumatized for decades at this point, trying to fit what they know is their job, which is inspire young minds, be able to create critical thinkers and thoughtful and kind and compassionate human beings, and reconciling that with this other thing, which is standardized tests and standards and AP and all of this other stuff. We did a podcast a couple of months ago where we talked about the transition back in the 60s, 70s, where high school and college, frankly, stopped being about learning and started being about training people for the capitalist workforce. And that shift has changed what we imagine education, what we imagine learning can possibly be. And so post-traumatic standards disorder is a piece of that, I think, is teachers. I don't know that I know of a single teacher who said, I want to be a teacher because I want to make awesome lesson plans. Every teacher I know of said, I want to be a teacher because I want to inspire young folks. So I think the first piece has been allowing teachers to just talk, allowing teachers to just feel, right? Because what Wes and I say often is we set out, when we do our work, we set out to do emotional work because that's what being a teacher is. It's emotional work. And so when you set out to do emotional work and then you're faced with the twin kind of like waves of COVID and now generative AI, one after another, knocking you over and blowing up your entire profession, and especially with AI, right as you were starting to get back up, Gen AI comes in and knocks you completely over. So I think the first step has been being compassionate, being empathetic, not saying teachers use this. Hold on. It's not about using it or not using it. It's actually about, do you understand what this thing is? And do you understand who you are now, given this thing? And by the way, students and parents are feeling the same stress, the same confusion, the same lack of understanding that the teachers are. And so we're all actually, we say that this is a trite saying at this point, we're all in it together, but literally we are all in the same place now together. And so we can learn alongside each other in a way that I don't think was really asked of us before. And by the way, that's what students are asking. Every student we talk to is like, I just want teachers to feel okay not knowing this stuff and not feeling like they have to show up in class like completely understanding it and then teaching us. Like, none of us know this, so let's all learn together. And so that, I think, has been helpful to teachers, just saying, hey, look, this is a big deal. And so let's be kind about this before we start to sit here and talk about like figuring out how to prompt best.
That's very inspiring. And yes, I think the using it, being able to be in this together and learn and approach this together is an incredible, powerful perspective. And also switching to supporting the teachers and being able to take away that scripting from standards and saying at 8 o'clock we're going to do this, and at 8:30 we're going to do that, and saying no, we're going to AI can help us in the background, making sure that we're hitting all the right places, but we're going to support teachers, to be the knowledgeable in many respects, but the empathetic, the emotional support, the guidance that we need for students. because we really don't want just an AI in the classroom.
No. And we say something that we say is we have been over the past 20, 30 years, we have been brainwashed. Maybe brainwashed is too strong a word, but I'll use it anyway. But brainwashed to think that our value resides in the digital footprint that we make. How many agendas did you make? How many slide decks did you make? How many emails did you send out? But that digital footprint, those are just bits and bytes, right? Those are just ones and zeros, like in a solid state drive or in the air. Like there's nothing human about the digital data and the digital footprint that we produce. But what an AI is never going to be able to do is it's never going to be able to hold the hand of a student who just lost somebody who's close to them. An AI model is never going to be able to laugh so hard that it can't stop laughing. It wants to stop laughing, but it can't stop laughing. These are human things. And so if we allow ourselves to sort of unlearn this thing about there's some value that's reflected about me based on the digital footprint that I produce every day, and rather say, hey, you know what? That digital footprint is actually it shares DNA with AI. And so AI, maybe let me figure out how AI can do the things that have the same DNA, and let me share with the things that share my DNA, which is other human beings and plants, animals, the natural world, the biological world. That's what shares my DNA. And so if we can figure that out and sort of, again, unlearn this piece around our value being tied up in digital, I think that can really help us kind of free ourselves from this sense of like, if it does this, then am I not doing anything? Oh, it can make an agenda. Does that reduce my value? No, it doesn't. I think it actually increases your value because now you get to be human.
Yes, I agree completely, and I think it makes me think at the Gen AI conference in Silicon Valley, we saw a company having robots with AI integration to be companions at an elderly facility, and it's like that's the wrong application. It cannot empathize with you. It cannot laugh. It cannot make, if you tell it a joke, it may laugh, but it doesn't have that, blushing of the cheeks and like that idea that, okay, I'm out of air. And I'm like, oh, I can't stop. And that is sharing that. I was like, no, we need to use AI. And going back to an image that Scott Mayer shared with us earlier, it's like, we don't want AI to do our writing and our human stuff so that we can do laundry and dishes. We need AI to do our laundry and dishes so we can do all the human things.
Yep, exactly. And that's where I think, again, if we can, I'm seeing it happen in corners. Wes and I are doing a session in a couple of weeks with Orange County education leaders. So these are principals, superintendents, ed tech directors, et cetera, and across Orange County, 28 districts, and so just people representing all the districts. And we have a speaker who is specializes in and speaks around the world on indigenous AI. And so this what I'm seeing a lot of, which is so inspiring, this rejuvenating and reinvigorating of indigenous languages, indigenous thought, oral storytelling, because we're able to do things now with AI to rejuvenate these languages that just, again, like you said, Romina, before, we just literally did not have time for, and we did not have the capacity for it. It actually was not, it wasn't possible. But now we can do that. And I think when you think about what makes us human, and when Wes and I walk around in circles and do learning walks, that's oral storytelling, right? We're kind of carrying on this oral tradition from way long ago, but we're using AI to digitize it, to organize it, to do all the things that we forced ourselves to do before that now we don't have to do anymore, and we can be real again with one another.
Wes, would you like to add and give us your take?
Yeah, I can't overstate the importance of trying to hold on to what is essential for us to do and experience as humans. Like one of the first weeks, Kunal and I worked together, we both kind of said out loud, like, where's the joy? Where's the laughter? Where's the music? Where's the dancing? Like these are things that know no cultural bounds, right? Every culture has these expressions that really make us feel alive and connected to people. But you go into an office building and it's like, oh, we're supposed to be, it's almost like we are already AI automatons. We're not supposed to have emotions. Those are problematic. We're not supposed to have, loud laughter. I mean, Kunal and I, we're known for busting up and people they just come to our door. What's happening in here? We're enjoying life. It happens, so I think the other thing that I think comes along with that is there's this immediate tension with we have not been in places of work where that's allowed or encouraged. It's confusing. And so making space for those emotions that's actual work. And we call, there's a label we use, we just say emotional work. What we're doing is emotional work. We're invested in it emotionally, yes, but it's also, we're trying to create space and strengthen ways that people can live and be alive and have their emotions fully present with them. I think that makes us better humans. So those are kind of my reactions. And I just want to give a shout out to the people in the chat, Elena, Kate, I saw. I mean, people are really active. I appreciate Jane. The interaction over there is amazing. So I'm so grateful to be a part of this today.
Yeah, thank you. And we're recording these for people. We have a lot of different time zones. We
Yeah.
try to hit the middle of the day and try to get different time zones available, but it's hard. People in Australia, there's people in in Japan, people in Europe, people in South America.
Yeah.
So we're I know that a lot of people will have questions afterwards, so
Yeah.
we'll probably bring those questions back to you and post them in the community.
Sure. Yeah.
That would be great. I think my reaction to this idea of bringing the emotional work is something I believe in a lot, which is there's this idea of life-work balance, as if work was not part of life. I'm sorry. Right? It's like I want balance, but at work, I also have emotions. I'm tired, I'm happy, I'm frustrated, and I want to enjoy it. And yeah, it can help us gain some of that time. Nuria and Graus shared some of that yesterday in saying, okay, if you're going to make, space for 4 hours of your week, not doing the tedious things, think about how you can use them better, not necessarily, for more tedious things, but for the enjoyment. Maybe it's personal care, but maybe it is having a good laugh out loud with people at work. And it's part of our life balance.
Yeah, I often kind of wonder, like, sometimes AI is funnier than the humans around me, or seems like especially when I'm using Claude these days, I'm like, wow, you look like you're having more fun than anyone here in my offices. So who's the human and who's the AI here? I mean, I think especially here in the US, I think, and this is probably true in other places as well, but the sort of like don't look left, don't look right capitalism, right, is like get to work, feel guilty if you have to take time off. Like we're not even going to give any mandated time off. Like all of those things have left us in a place where, like you said, work-life balance, it is because we have made work so unenjoyable that we have to actually create a term called work-life balance to make us feel better about the whole thing, right? And so, but again, like you said, that's where these AI tools can really, really help us. And, I'll sort of like, since I still have time to say it, like we are, and maybe it's been said before during the summit, but we are in this critical moment where we don't have likely too much longer to really have a say in how generative AI is going to be implemented and how it's going to be scaled throughout the world. We're in a critical moment where we still have, I think, likely slowly slicing away say in it as these companies continue to consolidate and grow, but we still do. And I think especially educators have and parents. That's why I do a lot of work with parents. Parents, educators, I think we have a say in how this develops still. And so we have to be loud. We have to care about the things that we care about and express the things we care about and use AI to help us strengthen those things. Because if we don't, then it's going to be used to strengthen other things that maybe we're not going to like so much. And so that's sort of my call to anyone I talk to and anyone who I am able to speak to. Just raise your voice now, because we don't know how much longer our voices are going to matter.
I think it makes me a little worried hearing you say that, but at the same time, I do have, I think, especially people working in the language industry, in translation, in interpretation, in content creation, content sharing, whether it's health literacy or financial literacy, which is a lot of the writers' legal understanding, administration, reaching out to citizenship, which is a lot of the writers that have been that are coming to the summit. We do have the ability to work with and go and talk to developers and collaborate with developers. One of the biggest areas that I think has a lot of room for growth and has not have a lot of investment is the data curation and metadata. Arle Lommel talked about this, the metadata that goes along with the text, that brings back in some of the human aspects of maybe in a conversation, like he said, you raised an eyebrow, or you're laughing, and the word, in the between square brackets, laughter, it doesn't capture that human interaction, right? So we do have a lot to say, and I hope that people are inspired to speak up, to try it out. Wes posted on the chat, don't worry about all the tools, don't worry about the forest of things. Go try one out, and check it out. There's no, to me, what's interesting about interacting with some of the language models in whichever interface is that I am mindful of the energy use, so I don't ask questions that are just for the sake of asking, but I do interact with it, and I don't have that fear of, oh, this is a dumb question. I just, you can ask, and it can help you, like Scott mentioned earlier, it can help you come from a place of beginning or newbie, and boost you up. And if you're an expert in a certain field, you can explore avenues that maybe you wouldn't have been able to, or you wouldn't have had time. I know we're at time, and I want to be mindful of your time, but would you like to maybe either share some closing thoughts or an example of how you've used AI in an unexpected way?
Wes, I think your story about how you reconnected with your mom is just one of the most powerful stories. So I'm just gonna sort of voluntold him to share his story about his mom.
Okay. So it's hard because you don't have cameras, so I don't, usually when I tell this story, it's in front of people, I can read their reactions. But my mom and I have a phone call every Friday, and I have made that a point of doing it because just to commit on working on our relationship. And I don't enjoy our phone calls because I just don't. And so about 2 months ago, this is November, maybe 3 months ago, August, I got this little device. It's called Plod, and it sticks on the back of your phone, and there's a switch, and it's just an AI voice recorder. It records and it transcribes. Well, the switch will allow it to take the vibrations of the phone and capture the phone call. Like right now, the latest version of the Apple iPhone actually does that. Oh, Romina, you have the Plod with you? Yeah.
Plod. It's this little device.
Yeah. And so I said, I'm gonna record a call with my mom because it transcribes it, it makes a summary, and it creates a mind map. And the second I looked at the mind map, I could visually see what was not connecting for me with my conversations with my mom. It was like topic. It was just almost a laundry list. And so I took the transcript, I put in ChatGPT, and I said, this is a recording of a phone call with my mom. I care about our relationship. I don't enjoy the calls. I wish they were more fun. And how could I be a better communication partner? And ChatGPT did this analysis that at first, when I first saw it, I was kind of taken off guard, because it said, well, you and your mom both talked about getting together for your birthday and your sister's birthday, because our birthdays are like a month apart. Though you both brought it up, neither one of you committed to making a plan. So why are you avoiding that? It seems like you're both avoiding a conflict. You mentioned a reason, like, oh, I have business, I have work, and she had other things, but it was never fully addressed. And I was kind of astounded. I was like, that's exactly right. We were both scared of hurting the other person's feelings or whatever. Okay. So I said, ChatGPT, what else might be at play here? I was born in 1970 in California. My mom was born in 1946 in Nebraska. What cultural, geographic, I don't know. What else is going on? And it said, well, for you, you grew up partially in a digital age where a text message, a Facebook message, those things have meaning for you. They came about kind of during your life. You were kind of formed with that happening in history. For her, it says only face-to-face interaction matters, and everything else it doesn't even register that it happened. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been doing these Friday phone calls since 2017, where I had a colleague who told me he did that, and I'm like, that's brilliant. I'm like, oh, those don't even register on my mom's, credits and balances. Like, Wes is a good son, Wes is a bad son. 5, 6 years of Friday phone calls just don't hold any weight. It's only when we see each other in person. So I'm like, okay, what's a plan? So working with ChatGPT, I came up with this. I texted my mom. I said, hey, can you pick 3 to 5 pictures from my childhood and text them to me so that we can talk about them on our phone call on Friday? And that very next phone call was the most deep, rich, meaningful, interesting phone call. Like 45 minutes flew by. We talked about things. We've had several of these calls since then. And they always go to a place where I'm learning about myself. I'm learning about my dad who passed away in 2009. All these things that I was being too passive, and I didn't know how to direct the conversation. And there was an easy solution out there. I just wasn't really owning that I was part of the equation. And then there was one other outcome. She came to visit, and I'm like, okay, when my mom comes to visit, she wants to arrive at sunup, and she wants to stay till midnight. And now I know why, because face-to-face interaction is the only thing that matters. So I said, hey, mom, let's get out some. And usually during that time, I try to escape to the garage. I try to, hey, do you need an errand? I try to disappear and do some things, because the conversations are very much like the conversations that I've been experiencing on the phone call. But this time I said, hey, mom, can we get out some old family photos? Get the scanner out. Can we scan these, label them, put them in Ancestry? And so I created this project that, because she's been kind of an archiver of family photos, and it's something she enjoys and has done for decades. And we just had this great weekend together where she stayed 16 hours, but a good chunk of it was this productive, meaningful, almost like a safe space, like a play date, instead of just kind of putting up with status quo. So anyways, that's my story. And it was a lot of taking my conversation in my language and putting it into chat and saying, how can I improve? This is what I want from my life. What am I not seeing? And Kunal and I, we always talk about, it's a great counterpoint, or like, help you see something that you might not be aware of. So anyways, thank you for listening. Thanks, Kate, for turning on the camera. Thank you.
Yes, and I just want to mention and acknowledge and share that my emotional reaction comes from the fact that my dad just passed away. So a lot of the energy that I have been putting that aside to get the summit going and doing it in honor of the curiosity and the drive to share knowledge that both my parents instilled in me. So that I think it's incredible to see to hear you share that, and also see that reflected in generationally we have a similar generational gap with and so that AI can support how to be a better interlocutor, how to be a better partner in a relationship, whether it's at work, in many other places. I am part of a group that I have to give kudos to Daniel Mieseler from the Bay Area here. He's talking about using AI to become humans 2.0 and not to, be replaced by AI.
Yeah.
So this is incredibly powerful. Thank you so much for sharing this. This is okay. I want to give you guys a big shout out and thank you for staying over on a Saturday afternoon with us. And we're just gonna today we're closing our conference, our summit. Thank you. With just reminding everybody that we have the community to continue to be connected and ask questions, that we are learning together. I saw on the chat Kate, Jane, others talking about, which ones do I start? Where do I go? Angie is reminding me of prizes. We have prizes at the summit, and yes, so we're gonna do our draw, and our draw is technology supported. So I'm going to share my screen and do our draw and tell you about the prizes that we're having. Let me share that, and I'm going to come in here. And now you should be seeing my Jupyter notebook. Can you guys see that? Yes? Yes? Okay. So I have the list of all the names, and we stopped yesterday. So we're gonna run these and see who comes up. And here are our prizes. And you're going to receive these with all of the information. We have Cal from Nuria Gomez Velard and Valeria Coleva, who have generously shared with us. We have the privacy and AI from Josh Goldsmith, who is one of our speakers also and has generously shared with us. And we have and we have my PDF research analyzer. So this uses actually modified prompts to go into a journal article and come up with a summary, so you can prioritize your reading, and in an easy interface. So we're gonna go with the first one. I'm gonna pick this one and get a name. Geraldine McKenna is gonna get the first prize. AI and privacy. We're gonna go through and pick somebody from the call. So it might take us a little bit because today we have Nadia. Is Nadia? I saw Nadia earlier, but I think she was in the community, not here. No. Mabel, Oscar, Hannah. No. Let's see. Jen, Irma, Abir. I hope I'm going fast, but I hope you can see some of the names just to know and tell them, hey, you could have won a prize if you were here. I know some people couldn't be here. That's why we did a draw for everybody. Valeria Busamra was here earlier. Lois, Pam. Giovanna was here yesterday. William, Salvador. Andy talked about Salvador earlier today. If you happen to see your name and I missed it, let me know. Carol, is Carol here? Carol was here a little bit earlier. Let me see. No, Carol left. Okay. Milagros was here. Is he here still? No. Okay, we're gonna keep going.
I see that Milagros is connected.
Yes. Oh, perfect. Milagros, you won the AI and confidentiality prize from Josh, and we'll be in touch with you to give you all the instructions. Awesome. We have one more, and we're gonna go. So one more person, hopefully in the call. Cinzia, I know that Cinzia couldn't be here because she's in Australia. Sophia, Dirk, Miriam. Okay. Monica. Okay. Amelie. No. They were gonna be here. No, I'm trying to see if some of the names appear correctly. Oh, Virginie, all right.
That's my name.
Yes, that's your name. Okay, excellent. So we'll be in touch for your prize as well. We wanted to do it live. This is basically drawing from the hat. It's just a digital hat. So congratulations to our winners. And one more thing I wanted to share with you is about an interesting, I think, was it Milagros, I think, made a comment about the male-female differences in how we access AI. And I wanted, people have asked me, they've sent messages through the chatting in the community. So I wanted to share with everybody, and for people who are going to be watching this a little bit later, what the course that I offer is about and how it came about. I have been navigating training about AI in different ways. Some of the rabbit holes that I've gone through have been very frustrating because they promised things that they didn't deliver, or they promised things were accessible and you needed to have, you know, a master's degree in programming. And so I am very, very aware that needs are very different, and there's a lot of training for people who are going into data science and computer programming. But for content developers, creators, project managers, there is a lot less. And so I have curated, and I went back and I am doing a PhD program so that, and now I'm at the research stage, researching reading comprehension with different outputs to make sure. I am very worried and concerned and interested in helping people understand and improve literacy skills. I believe writing and handwriting are very important skills that humans have developed and that we shouldn't lose. So I'm connecting that with AI and AI output. And so after going through this whole process for quite a number of years, I have extracted the different steps that I think are now logical, instead of me going and diverting and turning into twists and alleys that didn't lead anywhere. And what the course has is a foundations model so that you can understand the landscape. And I hope the summit has been also useful for that. Then a module that has to do with how you interact with AI so that you become confident, and we're going to bust some misconceptions, and we're going to guide you through all of the options in a sort of step-by-step way. We have a module for building your solutions, and so we're going to look at your use cases. So now we have very incredibly useful examples throughout the summit. but of course, we cannot address your specific needs in a 20-minute presentation or in a short Q&A. So in the module, in the course, we're going to use your projects as exercises. So it becomes something useful moving forward for you. We are looking at how we can technically integrate AI in ways that are other than the chatbots, other than prompting. So we're looking at how to get an API, how to use an API, what are the concerns about safety, security, confidentiality there, how we can enhance knowledge. So the knowledge enhancement module has to do with research, both for content, for and terminology, but also for the areas around your content crafting, which may be audience awareness, going to those different target audiences. And one of the tools that was mentioned in the chat is Notebook LM. We're going to use Notebook LM in the creation of content, in the digestion of content to help us learn, and also to help our readers, students or consumers, patients, etc., learn. We're going to have a module about visual communication, how to use AI to support our content visually in terms of formatting, layout, and visual aids. And we're going to close with a module on deeper understanding, looking under the hood and actually looking at how language models parse out language so you understand and you are very confident about seeing that no, AI is not you, AI will not replace you, and you will be able to explain to your clients or customers or team members or bosses why you are such an important part of the process and why you have value. And I can tell you from experience, and this is something all of the people who know me know that I don't like to say this, but this is why I feel it's so important. It has taken me from working on 2, 3, maybe 4-digit projects into now navigating projects that are more interesting, more complex, that are paying me 5 digits. So this is a growth time, and showing how you have value is very, very important. So if you're interested, it's not a self-paced, do it on your own time. We're going to have virtual and personal interactions. We're going to have we're going to talk, we're going to connect, we're going to laugh together, we're going to be frustrated together. So if you're interested, this is for the people that might be seeing this later on, this is something that is probably going to be useful for 5 to 10% of the people in the summit. So it's totally okay if this is not for you. But if you're interested in going from that zero beginner, maybe experimenter level to a confident expert user, we're going to walk through all the steps, and I'm going to help you not go through the rabbit holes I went through and get to your goals much, much faster. So I hope this is helpful. Okay, I am going to stop that, and we're coming up to time. So I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to remind you that we have the community to still be connected, to please come and share and join and ask, because this is the way that we bring in humanity into this whole process and this technology. So if you want to have any questions or remarks or comments before we close for today, please do.
I have a question.
Yes.
I might have missed it. How do we access that class?
So the course, one thing that you can do, and let me show you from a community point of view. I think that's a very good question. I know that our, let me see. You guys tell me when you see my screen again. Share is here. And I'm going to share over here. Okay. So if you are in the summit, and I'm going to exit, let's exit here. if you are in the summit, whether it's in the free version or in the VIP version, you're going to have access to all of the recordings ongoing on an ongoing basis, but you can go into the community. So when you access our AI in Writing community, there's a learning tab. And here you can see all the things that we offer. And mind you, please do not click the buy now in the community itself. Go into the summit, but this is the course where you can see what it looks like. And you then go into, let's go back to the summits. You can go back to the summit here or in the VIP. And I'm just going to show you. We have, I have a discount for all of you. It's been incredible to have you have your questions. And so you can get 40% off. So buy it through the summit so you can get the discount. All of the people that have been asking questions and participating and sending me messages and feedback, I want to really share and help you, come in and take advantage of this. So again, just to show you, you can go into the community and go into the summit and get the special discount within the summit. Okay, does that make sense? More questions or concerns about that? Let me see you guys.
I have to say, there's just so much that's been shared. I feel like I'm just like running to keep up.
Well, there is a lot, and I know I am always I have been in summits and events that share a little bit, and people are not generous with their sharing, and I don't like that. So I really wanted, I am incredibly grateful for all of my colleagues and all of the people that have shared presentations. I wanted to give an array of options for people who are starting, for people who want to maybe want to have experiments in their own places. I heard from somebody yesterday, I feel like I'm at a $1,000 event. And so hopefully that is the value that we bring, and you want to continue learning with us and take your time. That's why we're offering the VIP. It has been an investment in time, effort, and definitely money to bring all of the technology together. But so with the VIP ticket, what we're doing is supporting that technology to continue to have access to all of these. I know there was a lot, so if I can help you in any other way to parse through these, and if you have questions on, okay, now I'm going to go back to presentations and I haven't understood these, I am here to help you also. Thank you for all your wonderful comments in the chat. I love that hearing. You have exceeded my expectations by a lot. So that is, I'm grateful. I'm grateful to all of our speakers and all of our conversations for having helped me bring all this value to you. Okay, so if you guys are yes, agree. Okay, wonderful. More questions, more thoughts. I know it's late in the afternoon, evening for some of you.
I have sort of a related question, and it's sort of been touched on during the summit. How are researchers using AI? I know that there's just so much research that's published every year. Have you heard how people are making use of that to kind of get a better handle on what's available?
Yes, so that's a great question because I'm using AI as a researcher. But I also, there's one of the things that I mentioned earlier is AI in specific domains. For example, in the brain project, people are using AI to help navigate the connections that happen, and it's so complex, all the things that happen. We have been researching a lot neural the synapse and what happens in the synapse, and it's really incredibly hard to figure out what happens in the what comes out of an axon and goes into a dendrite, and people are using AI to churn through all that and look at patterns, for example. Researchers are using AI to identify signs of concern, for example, in X-rays, signs of concerns in sonograms. So the diagnostics, using AI for diagnostics, and how can they improve the way diagnosticians reach patients. For example, I'm using it to identify gap areas in research. It's impossible in reading comprehension. There is so much research. It would be impossible for me to read through all of the research that has been put out. Some of it very good, some of it not so good. So I pick up on, obviously I have my interests. I have my authors that are my scholars that I like. So I have put a collection of papers into one of the models to identify. It's like, okay, this is the area of research that I'm interested in. Is it really a gap, or have I missed something? Another way is being able to organize your references, your materials, and create a synthesis of your materials for your own consumption. So you can do that very easily with NotebookLM, actually. And there are developments in specific models for specific areas. So genetics, brain research, agriculture, every area is now training its own model that is going to do predictions about it. Gene editing, yeah, it's incredible. So there's people are even, beginning to see the possibilities that AI can bring to discoveries, to connections between fields, bridging gaps. For example, Kunal and Wes were mentioning indigenous languages. There's a group of researchers that has started a project about leveraging big data sets from big languages like English or Chinese or Mandarin Chinese or Spanish for smaller distribution languages that may not have as much data. And so they're harder to have an AI work well with. So it's being used in research in language as well. So I hope that gives you an array of, like, yes, it's used in a lot of different areas.
And just the whole medical aspect, like I could see where individuals would love to be able to develop their own, chat GPTs just to research their own medical issues.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we can already do even in ChatGPT. If you want a custom GPT and you're telling it, okay, we're going to look at readily available resources like the CDC or the Mayo Clinic blog, and and this is one of the things that I like doing and I'm doing with clients, is let's take the general knowledge that we have about diabetes, and let's bring it specifically to that patient. So we're going to combine, and that's why I deploy locally. And you can look at the example that I give in my presentation about 4 levels of interaction. Because I don't want to send to ChatGPT the patient's file, I deploy an LM locally. I'm working mostly with Llama. I do work with Mistral as well. And I'm asking, okay, what are the tips that I can give this particular patient? Not in general about diabetes, but this particular patient with this history, with these lifestyle choices. So I take out the fluff, the things that some patients are not going to care about. And some patients, if the patient already told me, you know what, I am not going to stop drinking my soda at lunch, I have to work with that, right? And we can communicate, and we can tell talk about suggestions. But if a patient already has a decision made and we need to work with that, it's pointless to continue to harp on that point. You can emphasize other points. So that is a very good use of AI.
And how, and maybe this is in your talk, if you're looking for like to look into the research for your own personal medical, benefit, how many of these models can actually go through, the journals? That seems like a lot of data. Like if you want to do a journal search.
Yes, so there you run into the issue of paywalls. So journals that you have to have a paid access to, and that this is one of the concerns in the publishing industry on one side, and one of the issues for accessing health. If I'm a patient with a specific diagnosis and the research is all in, behind nature's paywall, I'm going to have a hard time accessing that. A lot of it is published, a lot of medical research is published in accessible places like through the NIH, for example. And so you can do that and you can tell it, I want to go to this particular website. And you can give it the NIH or MedPage, whichever resource, or even a specific one. Or say, I want to look for journal articles that are about this diagnosis. Then you collect those and then you feed those as your custom context to, for example, the custom GPT or a project in Claude, and a lot of the models can do that. And so I have this particular concern based on your language knowledge and these 16 files. What can I do to to feel better, to improve my blood pressure, etc. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah, that's terrific. Thank you.
Of course. Okay, let's continue the conversation in the community. I encourage you and invite you to come back to the AI in Writing community and share. And I thank you all for being involved and for sharing your questions and experiences. It has been fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.